Welcome to Jaed English Center.
Welcome to Jaed English Center. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that will touch your heart, break it, and then slowly put it back together. It's a story about dreams, choices, and the price of survival. This is the story of Verity, a young woman who came to New York chasing the light, but found herself walking through the shadows.
My name is Verity. I'm 22 years old, and I came to New York with one dream: to become an actress. When I first arrived, I had nothing but a small suitcase and a heart full of hope. No family, no friends, just a dream that felt bigger than my entire world. I rented a tiny apartment, smaller than most closets. The walls were cracked, the lights flickered, and the sound of traffic was my only lullaby. I worked small jobs, serving coffee, handing out flyers, cleaning offices, anything that would pay for a single meal. Every morning, I went to auditions. Every evening, I returned home with disappointment. I lost count of how many times I heard the word no. They said I was too young, too plain, too inexperienced. At first, I believed I just needed more time. But slowly, that belief began to fade. Some nights, I sat alone by the window whispering to myself, maybe my dream was never meant for me. And then, one evening, the phone rang. It was my manager, Mr. Paul. He usually called to tell me I didn't get the part. But this time, his tone was serious, almost secretive. "Verity," he said, "there's an unusual opportunity. A wealthy man is looking for a young actress. It's not a film role. It's private. But the payment is enormous, enough to change your life." I froze. What kind of private role was this? Was it safe? Was it right? But when I looked around my tiny room, the unpaid bills on the table, the empty fridge, my fear slowly turned into desperation. So I agreed to meet him. The next evening, I took a taxi across the city. It stopped in front of a mansion, grand, silent, surrounded by tall iron gates. Inside, everything sparkled: gold chandeliers, marble floors, paintings that probably cost more than my entire life. And then, I saw him, William, 68 years old, tall, polite, mysterious. His voice was calm, but his eyes carried something deeper: loneliness, perhaps, or control. He looked at me and said softly, "I'm not looking for an actress, Miss Verity. I'm looking for a wife." I couldn't speak. My breath caught in my throat. He continued, "I need someone young, quiet, and loyal. Someone who won't ask questions. In return, I'll give you $10,000 every month, and a life most people only dream of." It didn't sound like love. It sounded like a contract. He gave me one night to decide. That night, I didn't sleep. My heart and my mind were fighting a war. Was this the end of my dream, or the beginning of something I didn't understand? I thought about every no I had ever heard, every night I'd gone to bed hungry, every tear I'd hidden behind my smile, and then I thought about what that money could do: security, peace, maybe even freedom. When the first light of dawn touched the city, I picked up my phone. My hand trembled as I called his number. He answered, silent, waiting, and with a single breath, I said the word that changed my life forever. Yes. That one word ended the old me and began a new life. One filled with secrets, lies, and a kind of love I never expected. To be continued in part 2, The Secret and the Lie. The wedding was private, no guests. No family, no music, just 2 signatures, 2 silent hearts, and a life neither of us truly understood. After that, everything changed. William kept his promise. I moved into the mansion, and suddenly, my world turned into something out of a dream. Designer clothes, sparkling jewelry, expensive cars, and endless servants who called me madam. But dreams built on silence never feel real. William was kind, but distant. He spoke politely, yet his words felt like rehearsed lines. At dinner, he would talk about business, art, and charity. Never about love. Never about us. And every night before going to bed, he reminded me of one strict rule: never enter my office. No matter what. I didn't ask why. I was too afraid of breaking the fragile peace between us. Weeks passed. People looked at me with envy. A poor girl turned rich overnight. But they didn't know how. Cold it felt to live in a palace where no one truly smiled. One evening at a charity party, I met a woman who changed everything. She walked straight up to me, her eyes full of anger. "Hello?" "Verity," she said with a bitter smile. "I'm Jennifer, William's ex-wife." My hands turned cold. Before I could reply, she leaned closer and whispered, "He only married you because of the will. If he stays married for 1 full year, he gets his family's fortune. Otherwise, his son gets it." And then she left, leaving her words echoing in my mind like thunder. When I returned home that night, I couldn't look at William. Was it true? Was I nothing more than a contract again? Not an actress this time, but a legal signature keeping him rich? The next morning, I confronted him. He didn't deny it. He only said softly, "Don't listen to Jennifer. She's jealous. She wants to hurt me." But there was something in his eyes, a flicker of guilt he couldn't hide. From that day, doubt lived inside me. And then came someone who added fuel to that doubt. William's son. He was around my age, handsome but cold, and the first words he ever spoke to me were sharp as knives. "You're a gold digger," he said. "You ruined our family." At first I hated him, but slowly, our anger turned into conversation. He told me stories about his father, about how William had always cared more about money than love. He said, "Be careful, Verity. My father is hiding something about you, about your past." Those words haunted me. That night, curiosity won over fear. When William left for a meeting, I unlocked the door to his forbidden office. The room smelled of old books and secrets. Inside a drawer, I found an old photograph, a woman holding a baby. The woman was my mother, and standing next to her was William. My hands trembled as I stared at it. How did he know my mother? Why had he never told me? When he came home, I showed him the picture. For the first time, his calm voice broke. He whispered, "That woman. Brenda was your mother? She was my closest friend. Before she died, I promised her I would take care of you." I felt my world tilt. All this time, I thought he'd married me for money, but the truth was even more complicated. He said he never told me because he was afraid I wouldn't understand. And maybe he was right. Because at that moment, I didn't know whether to feel betrayed or loved. To be continued in Part 3. The Truth of Love. After that night, nothing felt the same. I couldn't look at William without seeing that photograph in my mind. My mother, smiling, holding me, and William standing beside her like a ghost from another life. He told me he married me not for money, but to protect me. He said he'd promised my mother before she died that he'd take care of me. But what kind of protection was this? A marriage built on secrets? A promise that chained us both in silence. I didn't know whether to hate him or thank him for days. I avoided him. Every time he entered the room, I found an excuse to leave, and every night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering, was any of it real? The mansion? The kindness? The love I thought I saw in his eyes? Pete visited often. He said he wanted to make sure I was all right, but I could see his curiosity. He still believed his father married me for the will. One evening, he looked straight at me and said, "Verity, you don't belong in this house. My father isn't who you think he is. Leave before he destroys you too." There was pain in his voice, not anger this time, but fear. I realized then that he wasn't my enemy. He was just another soul hurt by the same man. That night, I decided to end the confusion once and for all. I went to William's study. He was sitting there, silent, staring at the fire. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, I said, "Why didn't you just tell me the truth from the beginning?" He looked at me, his eyes tired and filled with something I hadn't seen before. "Love. Because," he whispered, "I didn't want you to see me as a savior. I wanted you to see me as a man. But somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you, Verity." My heart stopped. There was no lie in his voice, no greed, just truth, raw and trembling. Tears filled my eyes. "Love?" I asked. "After all the lies, after all the rules, after marrying me to keep a promise?" He stood up slowly and said, "Yes. Love doesn't always begin the right way. Sometimes it's born from guilt, sometimes from pain. But what I feel for you, it's real now." For the first time, I saw the man behind the coldness, not a millionaire, not a manipulator, but a lonely soul who had carried his promise too far. A week later, our one-year contract came to an end. The lawyer brought papers for renewal. I held them in my hand, staring at the blank space waiting for my signature. William watched me quietly, afraid of what I would decide. Then I looked up at him, smiled softly, and threw the papers into the fire. Flames rose, burning the contract that once defined our lives. "If I stay," I said, "it won't be for the money. It will be for love." He didn't say a word. He simply tore his copy too and stood beside me as the papers turned to ash. In that moment, I knew this was no longer a deal or a duty. It was a beginning. Soon after, I got my first real acting job. I didn't need his wealth anymore. I had found my strength again. And maybe that's what true love really is. Not losing yourself in someone else, but finding yourself beside them. Because love isn't about promises or contracts. It's about honesty, forgiveness, and the courage to start again. And that is the story of Verity, the girl who came to New York chasing a dream and found something even greater, the truth of love.